I'm Brittany.
And I'm Heather.
Welcome to Okayest Moms, the podcast.
A place to be more than just mom.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Okayest Moms, the podcast. Brittany here.
And Heather. Hey, happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary. 3 years of listening to each other's voices.
Feels like a lifetime.
We were just like scrolling through all of our episodes, and you guys have listened to our voice a lot. Are you sick of us yet?
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not.
So this episode is going to kind of be a retrospective. We're going to talk about kind of the current state of the podcast, kind of like some behind the scenes nuts and bolts, and sprinkle in a couple of listener questions as well.
Yeah, you're in for a treat. So before we dive into all that, let's take a very quick break and we'll be back. When is the last time you replaced your bra? How about your underwear? If you're anything like us, it's probably been longer than you can remember. We get it. Bras are expensive, bodies and sizes change, and the search for comfortable options can be never ending.
Enter Harper Wilde. Harper Wilde is a female-founded company that offers affordable and comfortable bras and underwear in extended sizing ranging from extra small to 4XL. They offer wireless and underwire bra styles, as well as underwear options ranging from everyday, no-show waist panties to cheeky luxe thongs, so there's something for everyone.
Harper Wilde also offers a bra recycling program. Each purchase comes with a free mailer to fill up with old bras and underwear. All you have to do is ship it back, and Harper Wilde handles the rest.
You deserve to remember the last time you bought yourself a new bra. Check out the current limited color drops and the full product line at the link in our show notes. Okayest Moms listeners can get 15% off their orders with code GOWILD Okayest Moms. That's WILD, W-I-L-D-E. When I tell you that Brittany and I were beyond excited to bring on House of Wise as a podcast sponsor, it's a bit of an understatement. We have both tried various CBD products over the years to little success. Some flat out didn't work, and almost all of them taste pretty gross. I thought House of Wise would be another well-intentioned brand that fell flat, but I couldn't have been more wrong. House of Wise is a luxury CBD brand that offers gummies specifically formulated to reduce stress, promote better sleep, increase enjoyment during sex, and improve your workouts. Each full-spectrum CBD product is originally formulated, specially designed, and paired with additional, thoughtfully selected active ingredients to help women make the most of each day and give more intention and purpose to their daily routine. My favorite are the sleep gummies. I have the hardest time falling asleep and staying asleep the older I get, and these have the right amount of CBD, so I'm nice and relaxed and just enough melatonin to help me fall asleep without waking up to that groggy feeling or giving me crazy dreams. And I am obsessed with the stress gummies. They take the edge off after a long day of balancing all the things as us moms tend to do. Not only does House of Wise offer great products, they're also a thoughtful, intentional, women-owned company. House of Wise has an ongoing partnership with the Last Prisoner Project, which is dedicated to decriminalizing cannabis. If you've been thinking about trying CBD, this is your sign to try House of Wise. Go to okayestmoms.com/wise. All right, let's start by talking about some of our wins as podcasters, which feels like a very made-up thing to say. Nothing makes me more embarrassed than to have to talk about this in real life with a stranger. Well, it feels very made up because this job is made up. If we create a job for ourselves. We really did. And it's sometimes it can be hard to talk about that with a person in real life. Great. Because if you're new around here, we started as bloggers. And then in the summer of 2019, we put together a webinar series that drained the life out of us. But it was great because it was 6 weeks, 5 days per week of webinar interviews with parenting experts and all these really cool women. And it gave us all of this audio. And we realized, oh, what could we do with all this? And we repurposed that
And that's how the podcast began.
And then we realized we probably should have just started as a podcast in the first place.
It would have
But,
probably been a lot less exhausting.
Hindsight. So let's talk about some current wins we have. One that is always my most prized talking point is that our listenership is growing exponentially. It's very steadily increasing, and that's really truly our only metric of success that we have as podcasts.
Statistics for podcasts are crap. Like there is really like no way to tell where listeners are coming from and links to land on your homepage. And it's super helpful.
Instagram will give you a tag. Like, yeah.
Right.
There's usually a trail.
Yes, exactly. And we can measure those metrics and then copy them and paste them. But with
to try and recreate success.
Right. It's not as cut and dry as that. So a lot of these 3 years have felt like throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Yeah. I mean, that's truly all we've been doing. And it's sometimes rewarded, sometimes not. And like you said, when it is rewarded, the initial human reaction is like, okay, do that thing again, except we don't know what the thing was. So,
right.
At least on like Instagram, you can get insights and you can see how many people saved something, how many people commented. Like there's some way to quantify that. And truly in podcast land, the only way to quantify success is the listenership. And so we have to count that as a win.
Yeah. And really, we don't even know how many listeners. It's like, it's downloads. So that it could be, I mean, there are lots of factors, but all of that
I won't
to
bore
say,
you with all of that.
Yeah. Right. All of that to say, we can tell it's growing and that excites us.
Another win is that we've had such a steady stream of guest
applications.
Yeah. Which obviously feels great that people are seeing what we're doing and wanting to be a part of it. And we honestly have more people applying than we have episodes to fill with guests, which feels so great that we have the options and we have, the availability to put people in and have that freedom in the content creation. Feels really good.
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, you've listened. We have really cool guests. So.
And another win always is getting to, I guess, basically have our own soapbox to talk about whatever we want.
And we exercise that right.
But I mean, it's funny because I can have the same conversation with like a mom at baseball or a mom at school or like somebody we run into at the park or something. Like we're all having these same conversations individually in our friend groups with like random mothers we meet about how hard it is, how rewarding it can be. Like we're all having the same conversations, and to get to have those conversations not only on a one-on-one basis, but also with all of you has always been my biggest plus, my biggest reward from all of this.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very cool. I think it was, oh gosh, I can't remember who it was, but someone, and if it was you, thank you for saying this because it made me think about things differently. They said, our podcast is kind of like our legacy, which is a weird way to put it. But imagine like our grandmothers having a podcast with this many hours of audio and being able to go back and listen to that. Like, how cool would that be? I mean, some of it, I'm like, ooh, I hope nobody listens to that again. But, I like a written record of motherhood, kind of,
Yeah. God, I hope our daughters, my daughter and granddaughters, have a much different. I hope something we have done has in some small way created some change for them and they're not still complaining about the same problems we have.
Right. Yes, exactly.
All right, let's move on to some challenges that we faced. So one, to be completely transparent, one big challenge has been finding sponsorships for our podcast.
It is a full-time job. And I just took it over by myself. Because before we were kind of both doing it. And then, it came in phases. It's a full-time job. Like
it is. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of follow-up. It's a lot of peppering inboxes until you get the right person. And it is not for the faint of heart. It requires a lot of perseverance, which I do not have. And I hate it more than anything else.
I mean, I can't imagine the person who loves doing this.
It's like a salesperson. Like people like love sales, and I don't, because essentially it's a sales job to find a sponsorship.
Yeah.
And I have the personality where it's like, the second somebody says like, I don't think so, I'm like, I'm so sorry I bothered you. Please forget my name and forget any of this happened. I'm so sorry. Sorry.
Well, so am I.
And you really need to be
all the time is it hurts your heartstrings. And you know what I've come to realize is this is why a lot of people pay to have somebody else do this, because it's hard to talk about yourself when you're this close to it. Like, this podcast is us. Like, we are the product, and trying to sell that is hard, to say the least.
Well, and to describe the podcast, like, because that's always the first question. It's like, well, what is a podcast about? And it's like, I don't know, stuff like what, I don't know, just listen. And it's hard to sell yourself. Sales are hard no matter what, but when you are selling yourself, it's even harder.
Yeah. I often think, like, if I was doing this for a different podcast, how much, like, if I was doing it for a separate, I would be able to see it so clearly. They do this, and this. This is what they offer. This is what's unique. Like, but doing that for yourself, ourselves, is just so much harder. And I don't know why.
It takes so much blind confidence and arrogance, really, to a degree. And that's just not us. And it's hard to do that. And I think part of the problem is compliment. And part of the problem too, I think, is, for so many months now, we've all been hearing like, we're in a recession, we're not, maybe we are, inflation, like all these things. And these brands that we are attempting to work with are hearing those same things, seeing those same things in their businesses. Yeah. And the first thing that gets dried up whenever budgets are slashed is always the marketing budget. That's always the first thing. And so I think partly it's a little bit of that too.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely feeling that in Q1. And it is what it is. I feel like we are trying to make, how do I say this? Like, there are still opportunities to make money. It has just become a lot harder. And that is definitely a barrier for both of us. Like, we need this to be profitable in order to make free content. It just is what it is.
Right. Some other challenges, honestly, and this is true for any creative job, but being creative on demand. Mm-hmm. We have a pretty set schedule of what we record when. And, some days you wake up and you're like, I don't want to talk about what I'm feeding my family. I don't know. I have to make that decision every single day. The last thing I want to do sometimes is talk about it for an hour.
Yeah. It's a lot of mental preparation.
Right. And the content calendar waits for no one. It must be recorded, especially now. That's also been a huge win, is we have hired Katie to do our editing for us, which has been so amazing. It's freed up so much energy and time. But part of that is that, we have to get files and information to her in a timely manner. So like, there's no like, do we have to record today? Let's just do it another day, which is great because we were very guilty of that. But so it's kept us on track. But also it's like, well, that's too bad that you don't want to talk about that or talk to this guest today about this thing, because it's happening and you need to do it.
Oh, I feel like that's true in any job though. Like you just have to do shit and get it done, right?
Right. Another one, and I've definitely been feeling this more and more over the last couple of years as my kids are getting older. And of course, we don't have to have the social media aspect of it, but sharing more and more about my family, my kids has just been harder for me the older they get. And they're obviously such a big part of my life that it becomes, I'm just thinking 3 times now about what I'm posting instead of, just my usual second guessing. And so it just kind of has taken a little bit of the fun out of it for me because I want to be more protective of their privacy as they're getting older and the things they're talking about. And like big kids, big problems, right? Like the older my kids get, the bigger the things are. And they're not necessarily things I want to tell like the world or have the world know about them. And it just feels a little different when I share things now.
Yes, I have gone through this exact same triple thinking. I ask permission every time I am going to post my kids, and they have said no, and I don't post it. It's definitely like a whole new world knowing, well, it's a whole new world that we're parents who respect our kids' autonomy. I feel like that isn't always been a thing, but a lot of times it's hard to be able to talk about things even from my perspective, which has always been our thing.
Right.
But it still could be construed as an invasion of privacy, depending on, even if it's my perspective, if it involves Harrison or Sullivan. So it's
right.
Really hard.
It is, especially because these aren't, not that we're dealing with anything completely individualistic. Like these are common things that every mom goes through with, older stages of life. And we want to talk about them. Just like it's like talking about potty training on steroids. Like we all sat and talked about potty training and like what was working and what wasn't and how it was going and never thought twice because they were so little and it was no big thing really because every kid had to do this.
Yeah.
And now that they're getting older, they're doing things that, again, like just another life stage that every kid does, but they're so much older and you don't want to give too many specifics. And, it's just a weird space.
Have you had any weird situations with like people who recognize you or your kids?
No. And usually when that's happened, I've been by myself, which I'm kind of thankful for. Not that like anyone's been super weird or anything like that, but it's just, I don't know, it's just this weird situation that they know who you are, but you don't really know who they are. Yeah. And it's like very flattering. And I love when people come up to me and tell me that and I mean, like truly this happened like 3 times. So like, it's not like I'm like Britney Spears going to a gas station bathroom or something. Like it's very few and far between. So I don't want to inflate that in any way. Yeah. But I mean, it does feel great. Like, oh my God, you are a real person that is actually listening and you're actually out there engaging and like because we love that. We need that. We're nothing without it. But also like, I don't need you to know who my kids are, like it's a weird thing. And not because I think you have a malicious intent or you're going to be weird or like do anything. It's just like that initial reflex of like, the mama bear-ness.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just a weird, like, oh, like people know who my kids are and I don't know who they are. Like that is a weird feeling.
Very weird. And then this kind of plays into having conversations in real life with people also. And it feels very, it makes it a challenge when you connect with people in real life. Because there are people in our lives, acquaintances from school through like other kids' parents that follow us. And so, when you do see them and catch up in real life, like they kind of already know everything because you said it. Or you can take the route where like, oh, I didn't expect you to watch every second of our Instagram stories. So that I'll start to tell a story and they're like, yeah, I know. And it's like, okay, well now I feel like an idiot. And so like it makes in real life friendships and conversations not just like weird sometimes.
Yeah. No, I had an exact experience like that recently when somebody was like, I feel like I know what you've been up to. And it's kind of weird because was going to ask you, but I already know. I'm like, okay.
Which again, like we love because thank you for being there and following
Yes,
and
of course.
engaging, but also like, well, like, my highlights for the week, so I don't really have anything to talk to.
Well, I was just like,
how are you? All right, let's move on to some listener questions. So the first one, what is your favorite episode?
well, I'll tell you what's not my favorite episode. Episode 10, when we were like, what's this COVID thing? Oh, we're going to travel.
And you went to Mexico.
And I went to Mexico. It was, oh my God. Wow. If I could, well, I guess I could delete an episode off the internet, but yeah, what we didn't know back then.
Why would you delete that one? Listen, there were people 6 months into the pandemic who had that same stance. So like, we're good.
At least it was before, right?
Yeah, right before.
Oh my God. Favorite episode. You know what I have really loved doing are our cultural conversations episodes. I have learned so much from those guests. We just recorded one about Ramadan with Uzma from Momming While Muslim. And she is a gem and I loved that. We've done Lunar New Year with Ashley Newell. We've done a Hanukkah one with Marty from Everyday Jewish Mom. I mean, we've done a bunch of them and I just learned so much and it does nothing but help. I love hearing other moms' perspectives and their life experiences. And I think those are my fave.
I just love that so many different women have trusted us with their perspective because in pretty much every instance of these guests, they've mentioned instances of racism with their children or run-ins they've had with having to defend their culture or their religion. And the fact that they felt comfortable enough to come share their story, not only with us, but our audience, really makes me feel really proud.
Yeah. Definitely some of our proudest work.
My favorite episode is 92, Feeding Kids with Amy. And I just can't describe like the joy it brings me to connect with an older mom. And by older mom, I mean like someone who's been momming longer, not necessarily just like an old mom. And the way that we've connected with Amy, I just love her so much. And she just made everything feel fine about everything about what we were doing. And when you can find a mom with older kids, like they're just the only thing that I can ever think of is like they're like a lighthouse. Like everything you're doing is fine because that's the shittiest part of motherhood is like you can try all these different things and you don't know if that was the right thing until it's way too fucking late. And so that's when you find a mom who's older than you, has more experience than you, who can kind of prove to you that what you're doing isn't feeding serial killers, then it brings me so much joy.
Yeah, for sure. Also, Amy's pesto is delicious.
Oh my God, it's so fucking good. You guys, if you are ever in San Francisco, please DM Amy Fernandez, get you some pesto. You guys, I'm not even kidding. She posts about it all the time. And before I tried it, I was like, Amy, it's pesto. Like, calm down. And it is so good. I don't know what she puts in there. It's so good.
Delicious.
All right. What has been, we're going to start with most favorite thing about podcasting in general.
I think we kind of touched on it earlier. It's connecting with moms from all walks of life. It's honestly so freeing to hear other moms' stories and to know that you're, one, not alone, and two, to realize like your experience is unique to you, yes, but it's also universal and we are facing a lot of the same problems, no matter where you come from.
For sure. Yeah, no matter what your walk of life is, no matter how many kids you have, no matter what challenges you face with those kids, there is still a through line for everything.
Yeah, I think that's my favorite.
What has been your least favorite?
My least favorite is all the admin work. super, super thankful to have Katie now take over the editing, and she's way better at it than me. Like, I never lied about my YouTube school of audio editing. Like, it was mediocre at best. And actually, funny story, my sister-in-law texted me and was like, whatever you guys did to your audio to make it better, great job. And I'm like, oh, shit, we should have hired her 2 years ago.
Well, that was always the goal, to have it you be editing short term, and it just takes a little bit longer to get there. So,
It is what it is. And now it's great.
my least favorite thing forever and always will be how forward into the future you have to plan at all times. And this is true for content creation of any kind. But I mean, we have to think about Christmas in September. And I mean, we're not the crazy people with like our Christmas trees up in September, but that's because mostly we're not doing visual content. And, we have to think about back to school in July when we're just freaking got out of school. And because we want to create content that's topical and timely and applicable to your life at the moment, because otherwise, what good is it? But that means, having to think of these things and be creative when it's July and I just want to be out in the pool doing nothing else because it's July. And I don't want to talk about having to get up at 7 a.m. to go to school. Like,
yeah. And if we want to enjoy our summer, which is what we did last year, we have to front load that. I mean, our April and May last year was a little nuts. Worth it in the end to have that break, of course, but that also is forward thinking.
Oh God, which we need to do soon. It's time to start thinking about that, which is so crazy that we haven't even had spring break, but we need to start talking about summer and how to handle that because which I said, well, that is my other least favorite thing is working from home. I hate it. I can't focus. Over the last couple of years, I'm starting to think that, I mean, this combined with like too much TikTok, I'm starting to think that maybe I have ADHD. I don't know. I cannot focus at home, and there's always something else to do. And if like the juices aren't flowing, I'm not just going to force myself to sit at my desk. I will explode. And so or like we need to record and the kids are home, and that's impossible if you've ever met a child. So then trying to get the husbands on board to get the kids out of the house, it's just like, it's a whole thing.
Yep. Yeah. We're making it sound real good.
Hey, people asked what our least favorite thing was. All right. What has been your biggest learning experience? I have learned how much I like structure. It is very hard to work for yourself in a job that you made up, in a position where you can like literally make up anything you need to do. And it's been really hard for me to find a good workflow that I can consistently stay in, because the second you set one up, a kid is homesick or the guest has to cancel or like whatever. And constantly having to be my own boss and force myself to be productive has been such a bigger challenge than I ever could have thought it would be. And that's been a very big like aha about myself. It's like, oh, turns out I'm not actually a super organized person outside of a very structured job that requires me to be an organized person.
Yeah.
If we could get a podcasting pacing guide, I would excel.
I don't even know what that means.
A pacing guide is what teachers use to pace the curriculum. So like for language arts, this is where you should be by this point in the school year. This is where you should be. And at that same time, you're doing this unit in social studies at this point so you can get to this point. It like lays everything out for you.
Yeah, that sounds great. So if anyone wants to invent that, cool. Yeah, along those same lines, I've been in my own boss job since I had kids, because we consciously made the decision to structure our family this way to save on childcare, to have one parent that's more flexible. I don't think when I did this, I don't know, guess I left. Sully was 6 months old, I think, when we decided to do this. And I didn't know what I was getting myself into at that point. And it's freaking hard. Like I just made a reel about this too. And like so many of you relate to it. Like, yes, it's great in theory to work from home, to have the flexibility, to be able to pick up a sick kid. But the act of actually doing those things while still trying to keep your career afloat is really fucking hard.
Well, and it's exhausting to have the motivation to jump back into that workflow when it's been interrupted, especially like, for example, with the sick kids. Like, so a kid comes home sick. Okay, do I need to clear the rest of the week? Like, how you feeling here? Like, how many days do you think you're going to need? Because like, I got shit to do.
1 to 10.
Right. And so it's like, and then this happened to me so many times that it's like, okay, this kid's homesick. Let's just clear the week. And then they're back to school the next day. And it's like, okay, do we get the guest back in? Like, it's just so many shifting pieces all the time. And it's kind of exhausting.
Yeah. Which is also too why like we talk about being a default parent all the time. It doesn't mean that your partner isn't helpful or supportive or any of that. But Tyler gets to go to work and focus on work and be away from all the chaos, where the chaos is just like mixed into my day constantly, you know, right. And I have to have shifting priorities and I have to be able to refocus when I get back to my computer. And it's not always possible, and it sucks and it's frustrating.
Yeah. Well, and then there's the guilt too of like throwing in the towel on the day because like I just can't pull it together to do it. Mm-hmm. But also like, if I don't do it today, then is it going to get done? Am I going to remember to come back to it? It still needs to happen.
Yeah.
But and truthfully, like being back in the classroom, I feel a lot less stress, like a lot. And it's not because it's certainly not a stress-free environment. Like it's still constantly chaos, but there's a very clear set plan of what needs to be done. And I have enjoyed having that expertise again of like, I know exactly what to do in this situation. And it's given me a lot more confidence because in the podcasting role, like you mentioned earlier, we're literally just throwing things at the wall to see what sticks. And it can be a hit to your confidence when it's like, well, that didn't work. Like, right. Is there a point in trying again? And it's just, and that chaos of like having to refocus all the time is a lot. And that's kind of what I meant by like having to be your own boss and actually not being an organized person. It's hard to maintain control when there isn't 25 people staring at me here at home to get things done.
Yeah, totally. I feel that. Oh God, we're making it sound real.
Hey, we said we were going to pull the curtain back.
We did.
All right. Do you have a funny guest moment? I think I have one.
No, I feel like we're on our best behavior when we have guests.
We really are. You guys should see us when it's just us. We're like, this episode, we literally spent the first 15 minutes like, what the fuck did we say we were going to talk about?
It's true too, though, that like as soon as we jump in, like
it's fine. Well, and yeah, and then we always try not to over schedule our episodes because we want it to flow, but sometimes it's a little like the song and dance affiliate to the conversation. All right, so now we're going to take you somewhere where we don't even know where we're going, which is the future of our podcast. It's kind of we don't know, to be completely honest. This is like we said, we made this all up. Who knows where trends and consumption of content will go? Obviously, we've seen a huge increase in digital video content. And, I don't know that I want to be a part of degrading the human consciousness to 15-second clips and being a TikTok star.
No, I've decided I don't love TikTok. I'll just watch them 2 weeks later on Instagram.
Oh, you're one of those now. You're the bitch who got me on TikTok.
I know. I don't know what happened. I just feel like there's a lot of like, I don't know, mental health. I'm not going to go here right now. This is not what this episode.
You've done that to yourself.
I know. I'm out. Yeah. So like Heather said, we literally don't know where this podcast is going to go. There is like this weird content creator expectation. Because like technically we do this, we put out free content every week. And I actually had a weird experience recently in our email where somebody signed up for a newsletter through one of our lead magnets, which is a Bunko printable. So they get a free Bunko printable if they sign up for a list. And it's like, it's a cute one. Like it's the cutest. The reason we made it was because all the other ones were so ugly. And she emailed, it was like, oh, this only has 3 tables. Could you make me up to 10 tables? We have a big group. Like, no, this was free. Like I can't.
And this isn't the first time we've had that request.
I'm like, I'm not going to design you a whole new game for you to use for free. Like what? It just felt very like demandy and like this was already free. God damn it.
Yeah. But I mean, I think that's a larger issue of an entire society.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's definitely an expectation that it will always be there. You can always drop in. And I think to a degree, we want to maintain that. We want it, of course, to be equitable and accessible. But at the end of the day, it is a business. And to continue doing this, we do have to make it profitable for both of us.
Maybe this is a good time to share like how you can support the podcast.
Yeah.
The best way is to share it with your friends and help. Like these are free ways. So you could share it on social media. If you text an episode to a friend, then at least through Apple Podcasts, then it'll pop up. Actually on Spotify too. It'll pop up in their homepage of Apple Podcasts or Spotify. So maybe
the next time they open the app.
Right. So sharing it is great. Share it in a mom group that you're in if it's relevant, of course. Those are always great ways that we grow.
Yeah, because we cannot. Most groups have rules that you cannot self-promote. And so we cannot share them. So if you can, that'd be great.
And then click on links that we share. If you're going to buy or if you're interested in buying the things that we share, buy them through our links. That is always helpful. It adds up. You know, you get like 10 cents here, $1 here. It does add up. So support the podcast by visiting our sponsors page. It's at okayestmoms.com/sponsors. And all the links are there. Those are our current sponsors that are helping us keep this thing afloat.
Yeah, the next couple of years are kind of going to be just more of the great experiment of how can we make this work? How do we devote the time that's needed and make that time be profitable in some way, I guess. And so, yeah, that's really it. We're just going to keep on plugging away and keep throwing something at the wall and see if something
The
stays.
state of the podcast.
That's really our life motto. But I think, don't be surprised if you see us trying different things like a Patreon or other ways to generate income, essentially.
For sure. And we are just so thankful that you're here. We really are. We would be nothing without you listeners. So thanks for being here.
We recognize the balance of giving you what you want to listen to and working within our limits. And we realize and appreciate the balance of the audience and the creator. And we could never say enough how thankful we are for those of you that are here to do it with us and be a part of it, because you're the reason we do it. We'll be back next week with another episode in our Cultural Conversations episode. We're going to be talking with Uzma all about Ramadan, so be on the lookout for that one.
Bye.
If you like what you just heard, and we hope you do, you can find more of us online at www.okayestmoms.com. We're also on all social media platforms, Pinterest, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at Okayest Moms Blog. Or if you want to, you can send us an email at hey@okayestmoms.com.
Hi, everyone. I'm Megan.
And I'm Wendy.
And we're the co-hosts of Long Story Short, the podcast.
We're real life best friends, and we're your best friends on the internet.
Every Thursday, we discuss the topics that are on our minds, from midlife to parenting teens and pop culture. We keep it real with a lot of laughs and a lot of humility.
We promise we don't have all the answers.
We would love for you to join our community of listeners. Listen anywhere you get podcasts.
You can also find us on social media. We're at Megan and Wendy everywhere, and our website, meganandwendy.com.